Okay, this is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Dog. Today, my guest was a lead guitarist from a band out of Michigan. Put out one album back in the 80s, unfortunately, because that album was tremendous. I mean, just incredible. Kind of a rock metal thing. I was turned on to it about a little less than a year ago. Heard it, fell in love with it, put it on my show. Almost immediately, within like a matter of days, over 3,000 views, where people are just taking it, asking me all sorts of questions about the band and where they're from, and just digging it. So that's when I decided, I want to definitely reach out to these guys and see if I can get the story. Anyway, today I have a guitarist of that band. The band was called Salem's Witch, and my guest today is Mr. Mark Gast. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. All right, let's start out with a little background. Tell me a little bit about where you're from in Michigan and what were some of your earliest influences as far as music.
Originally, when we started, I lived in a little town called Bridgman. It's by St. Joe. It's close to the Indiana border, about an hour from Chicago, about 16 miles from the Indiana border. Most of the other guys in the band were from a city called Niles. I hung out there most of the time when we were doing most of the stuff for the album. You might know too, it was at the time Jason Newstead was living there too, from Metallica.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He lived in Niles for a while, then he moved to, I think, Battle Creek and then out to Phoenix. That's when he started Blossom and Jensen.
Oh.
But yeah, we were from that area. As far as influences, we listened to a lot of different stuff, but one of the things, I had a friend who went over to, he's from the UK, he came back with some cassettes, and one of them was Accept, Restless and Wild. So that was really something we really, really liked. And of course we listened to Blackmore as far as Rainbow with Dio, and like Sabotage I was familiar with. I liked some of their stuff at the time. I wrote most of the stuff, so those were the kind of things I was listening to. A little bit of Motorhead, the album, I'm blanking it now, but the one with Ace of Spades, the album. And then other bands, at that time, that was like 1982 or 83. So, Metallica was coming around, but we really didn't hear too much of them yet. Iron Maiden was around, we listened to them. There was a lot of bands. Black Sabbath with the Dio thing, as that happened too, and also before when they had Ozzy. Those were the main type of bands we listened to at the time.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned Dio with Sabbath. One of the comments I got over and over again, like I said, when I had posted the album, which, by the way, folks, is called Betrayer of Kings by Salem's Witch, was the Dio thing, Dio band. The sound that a lot of people said, well, this kind of sounds like Dio, other than the singer. Was that something you were into as far as Dio himself, or just more or less when Dio was with Sabbath?
When we started writing the music and stuff, I listened to him in Rainbow. I was a huge Rainbow fan. I was a huge Richie Blackmore fan. And then he went on to be in Sabbath, like on the Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. And we liked that music a lot. And then, it turned into Dio, but I don't remember the exact year that the first Dio album came out. I think Holy Diver came out before anything that I of course, like Dio. Vivian Campbell and those guys, I live out in LA now, and, they were in a band he was in a band called the River Dogs, and Brandon Did Your Usual Friends and stuff. So I was a Jimmy Bain and all those guys. I was a big Dio fan too, but I think my first glimpse of that was the Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules type of great stuff. All of this stuff was great.
So as far as the album, and like I had mentioned in the intro, unfortunately it was the only album you guys really put out. Where exactly did you record that?
We recorded, the basic tracks for it, it was a studio. It was like in a basement thing. It was in Michigan. It was, the person who ran it was John Zilke. Unfortunately, he passed away about a year and a half ago. And then we did some of the mixing at another studio. It was also in Michigan. And then we left to go to, we warmed up for Yngwie Malmsteen, and they finished doing the mixing sort of without us for the last couple songs. So some of the stuff didn't get as much a say on as I would have liked to, but it is what it is, and I'm very proud of it.
How long did it take you to write the songs? In other words, come up with the whole album?
Well, I had two of the songs. I had a different band that when I was in high school, like my senior year, and I had written All Hail to the Queen and Sweet Revenge and Run from the Devil. And then the other songs happened over the course of about the next year and a half, all of the other material on.
As far as writing them, did you write the lyrics too, or was the singer
Yes.
involved in that?
No, I wrote all the lyrics also. Actually, the truth is the whole album was actually recorded, and then we found Ron, who came and sang for us. We had a different singer at the time. He just had some personal things, so he didn't complete doing it. So we found Ron and brought him in, and he recorded the vocals, but everything had been written, ready to go when he came.
That's pretty wild. Now, where at that time did you guys play? Where did you play out? Did you play out much live, and where was that?
Yeah, well, when we first started, we played like at clubs and stuff around Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, things like that. And then once the album was coming out, I think starting in October of '86, then we were for Yngwie Malmsteen, and we did some other things like that, a couple festival type things, and more along those lines.
Because the reason I asked that is, like I had said, I had never heard of you guys before. Did you play at all in the metropolitan area, the Detroit area at all, at any of the clubs here?
Yeah, like once or twice. There was a band called Halloween.
Yeah.
They used to play, there was a place near us, it was called the White House. It was in Niles, Michigan. And they'd come down and play, and we played a show where they were at, which was up there. And there was another band called Strut, I think was the name of it, that they played with too.
But none of the bars here, or none of the clubs here, like, the Ritz or Harpo's, you guys never played in those places?
It was Harpo's was the place that I played at when we did Salem Switch stuff.
Oh, okay.
But that was like quite a while.
Yeah, I understand that. And of course, the Ritz is long gone, long closed. Harpo's is still around. Did you have any label interest when the album first came out? Did you have any major label interest in it as far as wanting to distribute it or take it to the next phase?
Yeah, actually, when it first came out, there was a guy that actually ran Metal War Records, slowly became mine, filled some contractual things and did do stuff. And then he got us a distribution deal. So we had a distribution deal mainly just for the United States at the time. So we did that. Like I say, we did some promo stuff. We went all over, especially Chicago, more like the local area we were in, just because I'll be honest, at the time we didn't have the kind of money to really go do our own promotion the way we probably should have done. And he wasn't kicking any money. So I went with a gentleman who was the manager for us at the time, and he also managed a record store. It was a record town, I think it was. We basically went, he was friends with a lot of different record stores. I don't remember all the names. I think it was Hegwish,
sure.
And there was a bunch of them. And we went to Chicago and Indiana for a few days and just went to every single store and tried to, get them to put placement on the wall and whatever we could get them to do. So that was our main focus back then. And then we did get offered, since I've been offered, I don't want to say how many, but a lot of people to put it out. There's someone we're working with right now. I don't know if I'm able to say the name, but they have some stuff. So hopefully pretty soon that will see the light of day as a reissue, as well as potentially some new stuff also.
Wow, that's incredible. And the other thing, of course, I think I'd mentioned to you in the months that we had been kind of talking back and forth, was that the original album is considered a highly sought after collectible. It's crazy because, on eBay and all that, it can go for upward to $500-600. Even the cassette is really up there as far as wealth. Are you surprised with that after this many years, people remember it and it's sought after?
I am, I'll be honest with you, but I know that a lot of it has to do, especially overseas, with they have these like record parties where I guess different people are J's. It's like all metal stuff, and they get together and like whoever's the DJ that week, they get to play, I don't know how many, like 20 songs or 30 songs of their favorite stuff, and they have like sometimes, from 50 to a couple hundred people, and they just have drinks and listen to music. And I think sort of like how tape trading was back in the 80s, that's sort of the thing that sparked, from what I understand, like Switzerland, Germany, some places in South America, Argentina, places like that. That sort of has given it seems like a second life. But I never thought those kind of prices, to be honest.
As soon as I had heard it, I immediately started trying to look for it, because the guy I knew who turned me on to it had said he'd been looking for it for ages. And he's the one that told me it's really hard to find. If you find it, it's going to cost some money. Which to me, it was like, wow. Like I said, it's a great 80s style metal album. I loved all that stuff that you had mentioned prior. Dio, big Blackmore fan, obviously, and Rainbow and Deep Purple. Other than that, did you guys have direct management for the band as far as any kind of like merchandising at that time, other than the album and cassette?
We did the merchandising. They had like a fan club that ran the merchandising at that time, and there was an original T-shirt. I don't think there was many. I think it was like 75 or 100 of them. It was a Betrayer of Kings one that they did when we play out before the album came out. We did a fair. We were like a headliner, and they had a battle of the bands before it. And I still have mine. I think some of the other guys do too. It was like a skull with an axe in its head, and it was a black T-shirt, and then all in red, and it was like a checkered floor it was on. And that was before the album cover one came out. And then that one came out. Other than that, the only other one that we did of a T-shirt was before all of that. And that I had some of the ideas, but the person who actually drew that was our drummer, which was Billy Neff. That one, I think we just did like 25 or 50, I don't know, not very many. It was just the band. Some of our close friends did it.
I see. As for the record itself, cassette or whichever, do you still own it? Do you still have it, or have you lost your copy over the years moving around?
I didn't have a lot of copies because a lot of them, just over the years through distributors and stuff, sometimes they didn't send back. I have a few left, not many. I played a couple of years ago in Chicago, and it was a festival. It was like Blur Assault, mainly 80s bands, and then a few bands were sort of like that. The promoter for it asked me if I had like 5 or 6 copies, and I think I took 5 of the album, took a little percentage of what we got paid, but I think he was selling for $100 a piece, which was cheap, comparatively, like you say, to what they're selling. And then I think they were selling I think there was 10 or 15 cassettes, and they sold them for like 20 a piece. I wasn't a part of all that other than bringing it. I had a few more cassettes I sort of kept for myself, and then I had like 5 vinyl that I've kept. Pretty much all I have, and that's one of the reasons, like I said, that they're talked to a lot of labels about repress and stuff, and so that, like I say, I can't say too much because I don't know what I'm supposed to or not. There's something in the works that should see the light of day.
That would be awesome. Now, at the time in the 80s when you did release it on vinyl and cassette, were CDs not around yet for you guys to put it out in that format?
They were just starting out. It was like 86 is when the album came out, and I think they started to do them, but I think the gentleman at the time, like I say, who was running the label, I think he was afraid to go into that because it was so new. He didn't know if it would sell or not. So everything we had was vinyl and cassettes. Since then, we had some deal for a few years where they, did it on Tube and all the digital things. But
that's where I was able to find it, was on YouTube. As far as you saying a good potential, a good chance that it's going to be reissued, is it going to be remastered? And you had mentioned something about new songs. Now, not new stuff that you recorded recently. Is this stuff that you kind of had in the hat, so to speak, at the time that we're hoping to use maybe for a second album, or what was that all about?
We actually recorded a few things for a second album, but it never came out due to some issues. No, the album, if it comes out, it was just basically the Betrayer of Kings that There wasn't additional. They asked about putting live stuff on, and I listened to the quality. I just opted, part of when I was talking to them is, it got spruced up a little bit, but the mix is pretty close to what it was. Intentionally, it wasn't, we didn't do something really major to it, because most people that we talk to, that they feel that's the sound of it, it should stay the same.
I wouldn't think it would need to be remixed, but generally speaking, I thought that most of the time when they put out reissues of any kind, they at least remaster it, because it hadn't been out on digital. They did do that.
Yeah, they did do that, yes. It was subtle things, but I couldn't tell you all the things of how it was done. The person who I worked with at the time, we went through each song and we compare A and B to the original, and all he did is work on leveling volumes and things like that. So it would sound a little, sometimes it was a little harsh, or I don't know how to explain it, but that was 85 when that was mainly done, early 86. So
now, with the resurgence lately within the last several years of vinyl, is there any chance maybe come available, maybe in a limited edition source on vinyl?
Yes, that's a very good chance. I would bet on it. Probably will be, like I say, I don't know how much I'm supposed to say, but I'm just being general. Vinyl, cassette, and CD.
Cassette even?
A very limited edition. They're talking about doing a a little box set type thing, and I don't think it's going to be a whole lot. I don't know the numbers on it, but they're going to include, according to them, a cassette in with that one.
Now, Now, at the time, you guys are doing this and you're gaining some popularity, getting some label interest, so to speak, and playing quite a bit. Did you guys ever work on or release any kind of like video? You guys ever make a video?
Somebody did a video of us when we played that fair that I was telling you about, but the audio quality was so bad, because that was one of the things that we looked at doing, is releasing that as possibly a DVD to go with the limited edition things. But tried and tried. We even worked with a gentleman who did a lot of stuff with basically resurrecting sound from really bad recordings, but it was done on an early beta cam. Video was okay, audio quality was so bad, and it just wasn't something we thought we want to put out.
It was that made like at a show? Was it videotaped at a show?
Yes, like I say, it was. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. I think it was Cassopolis, but I may be wrong. It was a fair back in Michigan, and the deal was they had a battle of the bands, and then we were to come on and play for like 45 minutes to an hour at the end. And it was, I don't know exact number, but I would guess it's somewhere around 1,200, 1,500 people, outdoor type.
Well, then you add the outdoor factor in for sound, and that's not going to help. With this release, will there be any kind of merch of any kind, t-shirts, any kind of thing that people will be able to purchase along with it or separately?
Yes, they're looking to do t-shirts, and like I said, those early t-shirts, from what they've talked to us about, is potentially doing a very limited run, those like 100 of each or something.
Where are these going to be available, or how will people be able to find that?
As far as I don't know on the t-shirts yet, it may just be through a website. The other, they have worldwide distribution to 26 countries.
Right.
So what we've asked, like I said, I don't know how targeted they'll do.
Right.
We wanted to make sure so many got to the United States, so many to certain countries in Europe, so many to Japan especially, and so many to Latin America.
Now, did you guys play over in Europe at all? Back in the day, did you guys get to play in Europe?
In the early 80s, no. We got offered a couple things at the time. We were just having some internal things, I'll tell you. I mean, our singer at the time, Ron, he passed away in 2007. He was really pushing to go very, very commercial. He kept throwing around the Van Hagar thing. That was something the rest of us weren't into doing. And so there was sort of push-pull where we didn't do that. He was going to walk away from it. So, that was sort of tough. And we were trying to get through to do a second album because we had some interest. And at that point, we thought we'd go play more internationally because we had a couple opportunities. That didn't really happen at that point. Then I moved to California. So
after he passed away, and I understand wasn't it in a motorcycle accident or something?
Correct.
After he passed away, and he was such a strong vocal point for the album, was there any thought at that time, or did you go out and try and find a new singer for the band to continue?
I had someone that was willing to do it. At that time, our other guitar player, who was a really good friend of mine, who unfortunately he passed away 2024, Tommy Bronicky, he had been in a really bad motorcycle accident. He had to relearn how to walk and stuff, and he was in a hospital for a long time. So at that point, we were just sort of holding on to see what happened with him and how to move forward. And I was doing music for some other things commercials, and I did television for years and stuff. So, we wanted to do it. We were really hoping with Ron, our original singer. Ron was giving some pushback though, because he didn't want to go overseas. After 9/11, had no interest in leaving the United States. So that was another thing making it a little tough for us. So everything was moving forward. I mean, we were talking back and forth. We actually had plans where I was going to go to Ohio, because that's where he lived at the time, in Lima, to go work on some stuff and then get together with Bill and Keith and work, just do all the stuff together, but like in little chunks. Everything was there. 7 songs were written. I only had 1 more or 2 more I was going to do, because they were a little bit longer. When he passed away, it just got sort of set aside.
With those 7 or 8 songs you're talking about that would have possibly been on the second album, were they pretty much in the same style as the first album, or did you change it up at all?
No, we pretty much kept it. I mean, we baby stepped. I mean, it moved forward a little bit, but it sort of moved forward from where we left off. But it definitely that 80s, some harmony guitars, the chug, and that's what Salem's Witch was. So we didn't, like I said, we didn't want to do the Van Hagar thing. We didn't try to stay true to what we liked and what we thought.
Did you get or try for in any way get on the radio? Were you on the radio anywhere in Michigan or out of state, college, anything like that?
Yeah, we had somebody who worked. We got a lot of college stations, especially Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio. We were on Z-Rock a few times because we were driving down the road one day and it came on and we pulled the car over and cranked it up. We're on a couple of things. I think KNEC played it out here in LA. We used to hang out at Cat House where Ricky Rackman used to have. Ball. And him and Tammy Downs from Faster Pussycat ran that. We got to know them through mutual friends. So I don't know if he asked somebody I don't know. I don't remember how it happened, but when I lived out here, I heard it a few times on there. And there was another one someplace when I went back to the Midwest one time. It was called The Bear. Other than that, sporadically, there was a place out of Texas too. Don't remember the name of that I had. It was like a syndicated metal show. It wasn't all the time, but once in a while, 80s and 90s, early 90s.
In reference to the reissue of the album, is there any chance in any way that you guys may in any way reform it all and go out and play? Does anybody have interest in that, or do you have it?
I have interest in that. Drummer has expressed some interest in doing that. He has some family-related things. Bass player, we're the only three left. Fortunately, right. Tommy passed and Ron passed. Bass player, I know he has some family commitments and things. I don't know if he would or could be able to do that. Billy, I've stayed in contact with him. I've stayed in contact with everybody over the years until passed. And even with Keith and Bill, I've talked to them. We played a couple of years ago, like I say, in Chicago at that festival. It was called Ragnarok, I think was the name of it, at Reggie's in Chicago. And that was a lot of fun.
How did you guys go over after all these years?
It seemed to go good. It was really weird. Everybody knew all the lyrics to the songs. You're coming back at you when you were playing and stuff.
Oh, that's got to be
Ron had passed at that time, and the promoter, he was a nice guy. He wanted us to get as much of the 80s Salem's Witch as possible. And like I say, at that time, Tommy still wasn't able to play. He was having some issues physically. And so we brought the guitar player we had before him back into the band to do that show. And there was a gentleman named Jan Mills who we played with before we got Ron, between Ron and the singer before that, which was Phil Ridenauer. And he came and sang the show.
Is that footage on YouTube at all? Because I saw, I think, a few things of you guys live on YouTube, but it wasn't from the heyday. Obviously, it was something that might have been.
I think that was that or the sound check or something. I don't remember. It wasn't something we officially would have released. I don't know how that came about. Like I say, I wish there was something I could put out as an official thing. Right now, there's just lyric videos and things like that for that. There may be something we can do in the future. I don't know. And going forward, of course, I would do things a lot differently. It's just, when you're doing it at the time, when you're young 20s, you're not really thinking about all that stuff, really.
The other thing I was wondering on is the name, Salem's Witch. Obviously, it was a metropolitan Detroit area band that was very popular here from the 70s called Salem's Witchcraft. How did you guys come up with the name Salem's Witch? And was there any real significance to it other than wow, this is a cool 80s metal band kind of name? I
came up with the name. I was going to school at the time, and we had to pull different things out of a hat to write reports about. And so my thing at the time I pulled out was the Salem's Witch Trials. And I just sort of thought it was funny because, the way they found out if somebody was a witch back then is basically they held them underwater for 20 minutes, and if they didn't live, then they were not a witch. And at the time, you had the PMRC and stuff, and I dealt with some people who dealt with that through this lady, Marion Hatfield, and she dealt with Frank Zappa and Blackie Lawless and some other people. And actually, Vinnie Vincent, those guys, and Dana Strum and those guys came out to Goshen, Indiana when we were doing that because she was getting a lot of flack from religious groups and stuff. I thought it was a cool name because there really weren't any witches in Salem, and everybody thought they were evil and satanic and all. And I just thought it's sort of funny. And then we spelled it different because we didn't want a T in it because everybody kept trying to put on a logo when we did that to put a cross, and I'm like, I don't really want. That's not what I'm trying to do either. so we just did the W-Y-C-H. Maybe the Y, I couldn't tell you 100%, but I think at the time you had people like Def Leppard and stuff, and I think we just thought it was cool to spell it different.
Definitely cool. That whole imagery of that album with the artwork on the cover and the way it was set up, it was, to me, brilliant. And it was typically good, especially considering all the kind of stuff of that was coming out at that time. Now, do you remember who it was that drew up that original cover, created the logo, that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. Her name's Muriel Wilcox, and she used to paint motorcycle tanks back where we lived. She did a lot of cool stuff for the time. Like the person who helped produce the album that I worked with when we did that, his brother was a big Harley rider, and so when we were looking for somebody, he suggested her, and I took it to the gentleman at the time for the label, and he's like, that's fine. Do you think you can get her to do it? I don't remember how much money. It wasn't a lot of money, but he gave her some, and it was a buyout type thing. She did the front back cover. I still have the original painting, but...
Oh, you have the original painting. Oh, okay.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Awesome. In reference to those times and what was going on as far as, like you mentioned, the censoring of lyrics and censoring of bands, especially ones that had any kind of witches or presumed satanic type messages in their song. Did you come up against any of that at all? Because I don't really think anything, you didn't have any bad lyrics, you didn't have any of that. A lot of people will say, oh, man, this Salem witch, there's got to be something underlining here. Did you come up against any of that?
We did. Well, the main one that I remember, there was a Pentecostal church somewhere near, I don't know if it was in Indiana, it was I think near Goshen or something. And the reason I was connected with that lady, Marion Hatfield, who was really big in the PRMC movement, she actually went to Washington for the things, and she passed, unfortunately, about a year ago. She called me up. She got my number from somebody and called me up and said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but there's a church that they've got your records and a bunch of other bands, and they're burning.
Oh,
and she goes, they're going to do it again next week. And I'm like, my thing was, well, I guess they had to buy and burn them. So we went down there that second week when they were doing it. I think mainly it was because of the name.
Right.
They listened to it, or we didn't have a lyric sheet or anything, so I think they just assumed that it was some satanic thing.
There's a lot of assumption those days based on record cover imagery and obviously the names that you chose. So after the band goes into hiatus, did you go on to anything as far as trying to start or be a member of any other bands?
I had a song, this was way before the band Raging Storm. It was called Mark Gast's Raging Storm, and we were out here in LA and played. We had some people that played in it that went on to do some pretty big things. And one of the songs along with the Sales Witch song, is in a movie called Teresa's Tattoo. Kiefer Sutherland, a whole bunch of people.
Was that a Salem's Witch song, or which song was that?
There was one Salem's Witch song in there, and then there was one that was called Under Raging Storm before there was another Raging Storm. It was more, at the time, it was heavy, but it was in line with something, I'm going to say like Whitesnake Slided In, something like that. Actually, on the thing, we went and recorded it. It was a studio, it was called Royal Tone, North Hollywood it was, or I think it was. And we were in there, Deep Purple were in there doing another, I don't know if it was Blue Light or, I can't remember which one it was, but they were doing an album there. And John Lord was alive then, and he came in and listened to it. You need some keyboards on there. I go, oh, you got to play them for us? And he goes, if you want to run a line and can headphones over to the next room, he goes, I'll do it real quick. And he did.
That's awesome.
And he was just the nicest guy. So, and like I said, Blackmore was in the band because I'd see him like in and out through the room, but I never really, got to hang out or talk to him.
Oh, that's too bad. That would be incredible. How did you get approached to get these songs into this movie? And are they like during credits, or are they during action scenes? What's the layout?
Well,
how did you get picked to be in it?
Well, originally to get into it, the person I know, and I co-wrote songs for him. I did a show called Friday Night Videos for NBC for a few years, and he was my writing partner, and for that show, he did a lot of movies. He did like stuff with Kevin Kiner. They did like Leprechaun. He was a ghostwriter for like Boys in the Hood. He did a lot of things, and we were just good friends. And then he told me he had been hired by, I think, Julie Cypher. It was her and Melissa Etheridge, I think at the time, were like an item. And he's like, I need a really heavy song like your Salem's Witch, and he goes, I need something else more rock like this. He goes, and he says, would you be willing to let me use it? Or he goes, I'll get you money, but it wasn't a lot.
Right.
So I did it. And then over the years, that was probably in the pretty early 90s. I think in 93, 94. It still gets played to this day. It has a lot of people in it. Diamond Phillips.
I do remember that movie. Did it come out at all at that time when they used to put out movie soundtracks? Did it come out at all? Was it out that way, or was it just used in the film?
It was supposed to. At the time, Melissa Etheridge had some songs on there, and I think Katie Lang had one. There was a lot of people. It was supposed to be a soundtrack. Between the time it was filmed, Julie was originally married to Diamond Phillips. Then she was Melissa. Melissa and her had a falling out. Then all of that got scrapped. That was supposed to be a soundtrack to come out. And then the next thing I knew, it was just getting released, but it was like HBO and not a theatrical release, which story of my life, right?
So what are you doing now? I know you're out in LA. Are you in or in any way related to the music business itself as far as bands and all that? Or are you into it in a different way?
No, I play music. I write music with other people. I've done that over the years, everything from rock, metal, and pop. I've done some session work over the years. I still do. For commercials, for television cues, just bumpers. We did the theme, like I say, for Friday Night Live. We did, I think it was 95 to 96. We did the New Year's Eve countdown, the music, except for the bands who were playing there. We did all the music, the bumpers, the title track, and everything for NBC that year. I've stayed, pretty active in music. Of course, we had to do other things too, but that's my main thing. And even, like I say, I write a lot of stuff now. There was a gentleman up till about 6 months ago for a couple of years. He had a lot of session stuff for different artists. Sometimes I didn't even know who it was because it wouldn't have vocals or something on it and stuff for commercials and things. And pretty consistently, I did 2 or 3 weeks a month. I did something. So,
did you guys make much money from record sales or any of that kind of stuff with Salem Switch back in the day, or did it all go kind of back into the band itself for more recordings or other things?
Most of it went back into the band. We made a little bit. The cut on it was like $1.18 per copy.
Wow.
And it wasn't much. And then by the time we didn't make it. We did okay for like live overall. It wasn't like Led Zeppelin money.
Well, no, I wouldn't think that.
But no, we had a lot of fun.
But taking a band down the road, traveling even around the Midwest or whatever, it's costing money. Did they pay for that, or did you guys have to pay that out of your own pocket?
That usually came out of ours or mine, I should say.
And did you guys travel in a bus or a van?
No, we had a bread truck for a while, and we drove it down to Indianapolis once without brakes, which was insane. And then we had a van were the main things. Then there was a bus later on.
All right, the last thing I want to ask you, hopefully you remember this. What kind of gear were you using as far as guitars and amplifiers when you recorded that album?
Sure, I know. Well, as far as myself, I had a Mesa Boogie SOB that I used. I bought it in Homewood, Illinois. I couldn't find Mesa Boogies anywhere in Michigan, so I went there. And the cabinet was a custom cabinet a friend of mine built for me. It was a 412, but only we just put 112 EV center of it, and we ported the back so have some breathing. Tommy used a Marshall and a Galen Kruger through a Marshall 412. Keith, bass player, and Tommy used an Explorer. As far as myself, my guitar, I had a Les Paul that I used a lot on that, and then I had a built guitar for me that was with a tremolo bar and stuff. That was I used for all the dive bombs and and at most of the solos I used that. Most of the rhythms I used a Les Paul. Tommy, like I said, he used an Explorer almost exclusively on everything. Keith, I think he had a Fender Precision bass, if I remember right, and had a Marshall full stack with a head bass amp, which was a really cool. It sounded really good back then.
Yeah, that's unusual. I'm a bass player. For a bass player to use a Marshall in any way, usually it's Ampeg or that kind of thing. That's really cool. Was that to try and match up with you guys on the guitar as far as the bass tone?
I don't know. I think he liked the sound of it. Like I said, I hadn't really seen many Marshall bass amps before that point, and he was working at a Tool and Die or something, and so he was making decent cash, and so he showed up one day with a full stack, and just sounded great. As far as with us, he just used that exclusively. When we did the show in Chicago, I don't remember what he used for an amp. He did a Fender bass, but I don't. And then the drummer, Billy Neff, he had, I think it was a Ludwig clear transparent set that he used.
Okay, my very last question for you is, how long did it take approximately, to record the album from the beginning to the end, to the final mix? How long of a process was that?
I think it was like 3 months, but it was like broken up because, like I said, the person who was financing it, they had cash, then they wouldn't, they were supposed to. But if you really added time up, probably about 5 weeks or 4 weeks.
Crazy how so many albums, especially in those days, for financial reasons, I would imagine, were done quickly. We're done quickly, get in and out, because studio time is expensive. And kudos to you, because like I said, it's a tremendous album from the start to finish. There's no what I would call filler on it. I just love it. Like I say, I burned a copy of the CD off of YouTube so I could have it in my car, giving it to a few of my friends, and that's only because there wasn't any other way of getting it. And it just sounds incredible. It still, to me, is vibrant and great sounding as it would have back then. I'm just sorry I didn't know about it back then and never heard of you guys back then to actually purchase it. But anyway, Mark, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I know we've been talking back and forth for months. I hope your father is doing well and your family.
He's doing good.
That's great. And the other thing the last thing I'll ask you is, please keep in touch as much as you can as far as when or more information comes across to you on when this reissue could come out eventually. I definitely want to get it, and I know a lot of other people, that want to get it. I know of at least 3,000 people that want to buy it. Probably more than that, but that's so many people, like I said, hit up the video and commented on it when I put it on there. And I rarely do that, but I was so impressed by it, I thought, I got to let people know about it. I got to let people hear this. And then, like I say, we were such an overwhelming bunch, and a lot of them hadn't heard of you guys, and we were saying the same things. Wow, I wish I would have known these guys back in their heyday. I'd have gone see them. I'd have bought their records, t-shirts, whatever. So, just so you know, there is quite a bit of interest in it there, at least in Michigan, and I'm sure from other places.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll definitely keep in touch and let you know. As soon as I know, I'll let you know, I promise.
Again, Mark, I'll let you go, and I want to thank you again for being on the show and filling us in on this information, and really look forward to this reissue and any kind of bonus tracks, any kind of thing. I think the lyric sheet's a brilliant idea, and that you're saying it probably, some kind of limited edition, come out on vinyl. That would be incredible, because vinyl's back. I love vinyl. The whole 80s metal type of thing, it seems to have been coming back around, too. Those bands have gained a lot of popularity again, and hopefully you guys can get along with that bandwagon, so to speak, and have a little bit of resurgence.
The guy who yells at me if I put out a CD that I need to make it a certain way, and like the old days, I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, Mark, again, thank you so much, and please keep in touch, and you have a good night.
Thank you, James. You have a good night. Thank you so much.
No problem. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, that was Mark Gast from Salem's Wych, band that was formed in Michigan and put out one album, unfortunately only one album. Their lead vocalist was killed tragically in a motorcycle accident, and they tried to reform it, with someone else. It just didn't pan out. So many bands. But if you haven't heard of these guys, like I say, they're Salem's Wych. I have their entire album on my site, and the album is called Betrayer of Kings. If you like good 80s metal, you should really check it out. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Anyway, with that said, I'd also like to say, if you have any vintage audio equipment that you want to get repaired, but you just don't know where to go to have it fixed, well, my buddies over at $7 Audio Service will be the answer. The owner, Dash, assistant, Harry, have been in business for over 40 years. They've got the experience to fix anything, as far as receivers, turntables, amplifiers, cassette decks, you name it, they'll fix it. The name of the place, like I say, is $7 Audio Repair. They're located at 25642 7 Mile Road in North Redford. The phone number there is 313-533-3635. Tell them Jimmy Jive sent you. Anyway, with that being said, as I always say, keep rocking.